Hi, you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation. Woo!
This is Dcafs. I stick 'em for the cream.
You think I'm stupid, son?
No, sir.
Yes, you do. You're trying to con a con man. You're not even learning anything on the streets, are you?
In other words, the point is, you can say anything you want to say. Someone could urinate on your leg and you say, no, it's raining out. That doesn't mean it's raining out.
And he sparred with a lot of world-class boxers like Andre Ward,
who's fighting now.
tonight. Yeah.
Don't tell me the results.
I don't know the results. I'm not touching my phone until
Me
I
neither.
get back.
Me too. You guys are crazy.
I love Andre Ward.
He's one of my favorite
he's
fighters.
Awesome. He's so fucking smart. That's what I like about Andre
Top 3
Ward.
pound for pound.
Damn.
He's so goddamn smart. When he breaks down boxing, like when he does the analyst position on
He's a fucking
HBO,
monster.
you realize like, oh, okay, this dude is just a super smart guy.
Undefeated gold medalist.
Yep.
He's a
Virgil
monster.
Hunter.
Gold
Thinking-
medalist in the Olympics?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
He's the best boxer in the world.
I had this conversation with Andre Berto about Andre Ward. He was telling me that he learned a lot just watching Andre Ward. If you watch him warm up, he'll do things. He's so technical, the perfect kind of hooks. Like everything is like he's obsessed with everything. He's obsessed with perfect technique. Like every detail, where his feet are, and he always does that, and he obsesses over exactly where his.
I'll tell you the one, if not that, the one I would be wearing a Golovkin hat if he wins this fight. And I don't know that it's going to happen because it's all about the money. But Andre Ward. For me, Andre Ward doesn't get enough credit. But he's a good human being, so that's where it starts with for me with him. And he's a guy that he brings the whole package in the ring. He's technically solid. He can fight inside, he can fight outside, he can adjust, he can counterpunch, he could do whatever needs to be done, but the most important thing, he's mentally together. He is at this level, at the highest of levels, which is what you aspire to be in anything, mentally, where he doesn't beat himself, he doesn't falter, he doesn't unravel, he doesn't disintegrate. He doesn't, like I used to say on ESPN Friday Night Fights, he doesn't look like a puddle on a warm summer day that evaporates right in front of your freaking eyes. No, Andre Ward is the goods, mentally, technically, physically. And if Golovkin ever beat him, well, then I would be, I'd be wearing a Golovkin hat.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? I tell you all the time on this channel, the truth will always break free. You can lock the truth up and throw away the key, but that truth is going to find a way to break out. Let's go ahead and talk about those 2 clips that I just played for you. Let's focus on the first clip. Now, the first thing I want to say is, if I really took the extra time, which I didn't feel like doing right now, if I would have really dug deep in them crates, I could have pulled out at least 10 to 15 professional boxers and trainers, non-black professional boxers and trainers. It's very important that I say non-black. I could have pulled out 10 to 15 professional trainers that would corroborate with every single thing you heard Joe Rogan, along with UFC fighters and trainer Teddy Atlas say. Now, the reason why I said it was very important to say I could find 10 to 15 non-black trainers and boxers, because when you listen to these Dcafs, they always try to push this notion that the only people that would say anything positive about Andre Ward would be these black people. I see it all the time in the comment section. You Ward lover this, and you just like Ward, your boy, etc., etc. When they say these things, they are implying the only person that would say something positive about this Andre Ward or this Al Heyman, or this Floyd Mayweather are other people that look like Andre Ward, Floyd Mayweather, Al Heyman, Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, and the list goes on and on and on. Which is exactly why what you guys just heard a minute ago, those clips that I just played for you, that is the racist fans' worst nightmare. That is their worst nightmare. Because once again, the Dcaf advocates and supports segregation in the sport of boxing. They want the sport to be divided. Why else would you hear an American telling another American, oh, you just like that American guy, don't you? You just like that Andre Ward American guy who's considered one of the best fighters in the world. You would never get that in any other country, would you? You would never get that in any other country. You would never hear two Mexicans arguing and one of the Mexican guys says, oh, you just love that Canelo guy. Why don't you admit it, you Canelo lover? Now understand this. There's a difference from criticizing a certain fighter, even if he's your own countryman. There's a difference from criticizing him and saying, you know what, I want him to step up, etc., etc. But when it gets to the point to where you're actually mad because someone else actually likes him, that is when it is no longer about boxing. It's about something completely different once it goes that far. Now, getting back to this clip, the first clip with Joe Rogan, what I find interesting is you have MMA guys. They are sitting over here praising Andre Ward. But check it out. They're not just talking like fans. They're not sitting over here saying Andre Ward is the best and Golovkin is a bitch and all these other fighters are bastards, etc., etc. They're not doing that. And on top of that, they are breaking it down. They are telling you exactly what makes Andre Ward so impressive, right? A complete breakdown. I mean, they're breaking it down from the way Andre Ward talks boxing when he's covering fights on HBO, all the way down to his hooks that he throws, the perfection that he incorporates in throwing these hooks, right? And then they said something that would be taboo to say if you're on the coincidental list like me. They used the L word. You heard Joe Rogan and you heard the MMA fighter. I forget his name, but it's one of the MMA fighters that was on The Ultimate Fighter. But you hear Joe Rogan and you hear the MMA fighter say, I love Andre Ward. Oh man, I just love this guy. The way he fights, so perfect, etc., etc. You know, this is the saddest thing about boxing. Boxing is such a racially divided sport. Do you guys know, and this is real talk, do you guys know that black fans, they can't even praise an Andre Ward without racist fans saying, oh, you just love him. Oh, you just like him. Once again, that's a bad thing, right? Saying you love him. In other words, like they're calling you an N-word lover. You N-word lover. You this and you that. And matter of fact, while I'm talking about this is what I'm going to start doing. Whenever I start to talk about the real racism, you know, that really rears its ugly head in the sport of boxing and is a major distraction, whenever I bring this up, whenever you hear me speaking the whole truth, I'm going to go ahead and play these clips so you guys can see that I can show and prove. I'm not just telling you I see dead people. No, I'll show you the dead people. You feel me? For those of you guys who've seen the movie The Sixth Sense. So with that all being said, notice, like I just said, when it comes to people that aren't on the coincidental list, like Joe Rogan and his crew, they can say, I love this guy, Andre Ward, and they don't have to worry about the backlash of being called N-words and all these other racial slurs. No one's going to call them Ward lovers because they only call black people Ward lovers. You see, all of this is done by design. What that means is, once again, they're not going to call a non-black fan a Ward lover because they want to leave the impression, they want to get you to believe that the only people that like or would say anything positive about Andre Ward would have to be a black fan. This is the reason why whenever I do a video and there's a non-black boxer or trainer that is praising Andre Ward or criticizing Gennady Golovkin by saying, hey, the guy is strong, he's a good fighter, but we got to see him fight somebody. He hasn't really fought any tough competition yet. When you hear a non-black fighter or professional trainer say something like that, they do not get the type of backlash that I would get if I were to say something like that. Matter of fact, this is where it really gets funny. I could basically upload an interview with nobody but Paulie Malignaggi, Teddy Atlas, Ruslan Provodnikov. I could upload a video with just them talking. And if they're saying the same things you guys hear me say, if they're saying Andre Ward is pound for pound the best fighter in the world, Gennady Golovkin is very good, but I want to see him step up, I want to see him fight Andre Ward. 99% of the messages, you know who the messages are directed to? They're not directed to the guy who just said that. They're directed to the messenger, the guy that uploaded it. How does that work? Because once again, even when they see it with their own eyes, they want to convince you, and they want to convince themselves. I don't care how many white people, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Asian, I don't care how many non-black people say this. These are the black people that are just hating on Gennady Golovkin. These are the black people that are just loving Andre Ward because they're because they're Ward lovers, right? Code words, guys, code words. Do you really think it's a coincidence that Ward lover and N-word lover sound very similar? We know what time it is. I have never called any fan a Canelo lover, a Golovkin lover. Oh, you Golovkin lover, you. Oh, you Pacquiao lover, you. I've never called anyone that. But once again, when you have an American, and you know what? I'm not even going to say an American. When you have a fake American. Because, see, I want you guys to understand this. It's okay to root for people from different countries. Nothing wrong with that. It's okay to root for fighters from different countries, right? But this is when it becomes a problem. When the best fighter in the world, pound for pound, happens to be American, and you're personally trying to discredit that guy as much as you can. You're telling people you personally hate him for no reason at all, but then you praise fighters from a different country. That's when it becomes a major problem. And some people would call that treason. That is exactly what it is called when an American turns his back on another American. Once again, we're not talking about an American that doesn't deserve the credit. We're talking about an American fighter that is praised in every other country but his own country, right? We're not saying an American should tell people that James Kirkland is the best in the world just because he's American. No, we are talking about giving credit to those who deserve the credit, right? That is what we are talking about right now. And I know there are fans and there are members of the media right now. You're watching and listening to this video and you're saying, oh, come on, Dante. It has nothing to do with people just hating or being racist. It's just the fact that he hasn't fought that much, etc., etc. But Andre Ward is more active this year than the majority of fighters in the sport with big names. Andre Ward right now is more active than Manny Pacquiao. He's more active than Roman Gonzalez. He's more active than a lot of fighters on the top of the sport right now. On top of that, how do you justify you hating on Andre Ward for whatever excuse you're using, but at the same time, fans from different countries, they're not saying they hate him. They're not saying, oh, you know, I liked him until he took that layoff, etc., etc. They're not saying that. So how do you explain that? You're trying to say, oh, it has nothing to do with race or this and that. Then please explain to me why fans from different countries are praising Andre Ward right now. Please explain to me why MMA fighters and commentators are praising Andre Ward right now. How come they didn't say, you know what, I don't really think he's that good because he took that time off and he's a little overrated. I can't say he's like one of the best because of this, because of that. They're not talking like you. Why is that? Why is that? So I'm letting you guys know, man. When I tell you these racist fans and racist media members are using code words to hide the fact that they are blatant racists, I'm telling you right now, I can prove it. Because unlike some of you guys, you can just say things. But everything that I tell you guys, I can show and prove. When you hear fans you saying stuff like, you Ward lover, we know what they are really trying to call you. They are calling you an N-word lover because once again, I don't never go around calling nobody no Canelo lover, no Golovkin lover. I never talk like that. These are code words, guys. And if you look at these comments that I put on the screen, you know what the translation is when they use these code words. But once again, man, you guys got a taste of how pure the sport of boxing could be if the country was colorblind. You feel me? Just imagine for a second, guys. Imagine if you watch boxing, but you couldn't see what race, what color, what nationality they were. You couldn't go off of looks, off of their voice. You couldn't go off of their stereotypical boxing style. The only thing you could go off is who is the best in the ring. Can you imagine if we had a sport like that? Because in other countries, they do look at the sport that way. Now, I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist in the UK, because of course racism exists everywhere. But if you compare the level of respect that the boxing fans have for the sport and for their athletes compared to America, it's night and day. It's not even close. The reason why Anthony Joshua and David Haye, who's not even the biggest fighter, he's not even the biggest heavyweight in UK right now. David Haye can fight anybody. He can fight a complete bum and sell out an arena in record time. Because the boxing fans in the UK, they love boxing. They're not just in love with one particular race or one particular color. They are in love with boxing, and they are loyal to their countrymen in the sport of boxing. This is how it's supposed to be in the USA. As I call it, the DSA, the Divided States of America. Until we start to become more like countries like the UK, the sport of boxing will never be as big as it is in the UK and other countries. So for all you Dcafs that hate to hear me speak the truth and you want to silence me, it ain't gonna never happen. You could send me as many racist comments as you want. That just makes me want to expose it even more. You know, the funny thing though is, if these Dcafs, if they would put just as much effort into calling out the real racist people that are posting these racist comments in the comment section, if they were to attack them the same way they attack the person that's calling the police, that's trying to push the awareness out there, then this big ass racist dark cloud wouldn't be so damn large hanging over the sport of boxing today. You guys should really think about that. Do you know how ignorant it is if someone is calling the police on criminals and you're more upset with the person that's calling the police than the actual criminals? That means you must be one of the criminals, right? That's the only way that makes any sense. People in your neighborhood getting their house broken into, right? And you're over here, you're mad because that person called the police. You're mad at that person, but you're not mad at the people that's breaking into the homes. Do you guys see how ridiculous that sounds? At the end of the day, when you listen to people talk about boxing today in America, you quickly find out when you hear how they discredit Andre Ward, and then when you look at the contrast and you listen to what Joe Rogan and Teddy Atlas just said, you quickly find out, oh, this is not about boxing. Oh, I thought we were talking boxing. Oh, you're telling me you personally don't like Andre Ward. Oh, I thought this was about boxing, right? Once again, when you hear, you're supposed to be talking about the sweet science, how great a person throws a jab. Look at the ring generalship. Look at the inside work. Look at the foot movement. Look at the defense. Look at the power, etc., etc., etc. You're not talking about any of that. The only thing you say is, oh, you're just a Ward lover, aren't you? Oh, I thought you wanted to talk boxing. You want to talk boxing, right? You're just a Ward lover. You don't want to talk boxing. You don't want to talk boxing. You want to tell me who you like and who you don't like. And you don't care what makes sense. Because your mind is already made up, right? That, my friend, is not a real boxing fan. And I don't know if I said it before, but when I was talking about treason and I talked about Americans turning their back on other Americans, those are not real Americans either. Those ain't real Americans. You have some real all Americans in the country, and then you have other Americans that just live in America. There is a difference, because all Americans shouldn't be doing that. All Americans should not be doing that. If you go to Brazil to watch the Olympics and you're watching an American win a gold medal, you shouldn't be booing him, right? How often do you see an American at the Olympics booing the gold medal winner who happens to be American? Oh, USA sucks. I wanted the Russian fighter to win. That American gold medalist is garbage. I like the silver medalist from Russia better. You ever hear any Americans at the Olympics talk like that? Not too often, right? But this is exactly what these fake Americans do when it comes to the sport of boxing. This is how they talk. Even if that American fighter is the best, number one in the world, they will still discredit him and root for another country. Not because they like that person's style. That's another excuse. You have to understand something. No racist person is just going to come flat out and tell you that they're racist. But see, when it comes to me, I could paint the picture and I could break it down. And I could expose these type of fans with facts. Not just telling you what you are. I could explain it. I could break it down. Right? When you hear these fans say, oh, no, it's not racism. It's just, I like a certain style. I don't like the way this guy fights, etc., etc. But then, of course, once Errol Spence comes along and gets knockouts, when Deontay Wilder comes along and gets knockouts, when Nicholas Walter, when Terrence Crawford gets knockouts, you still have a different excuse why you don't treat them like you treat other fighters on the hope list, right? So at first you were saying, oh, it's because the fans want to see knockouts. Knockouts is what the fans want to see. Then when you bring up Errol Spence, oh, but I think that guy is on steroids. You bring up Deontay Wilder, oh, but his competition is not as great as a Gennady Golovkin. Oh, but when Golovkin was knocking out Adama, when he was knocking out Rubio, you were jumping up and down, saying Golovkin is the best. Look at what he did to Monroe. Did you see what he just did to Willie Monroe? How is this guy not the best? This is what you said when Golovkin was knocking out Monroe. But when Deontay Wilder is knocking out Chris Arreola, when Deontay Wilder is knocking down Bermane Stavern, a fighter that a lot of people favor to beat Deontay Wilder, you don't give him the same type of credit? Listen, I want racist fans to understand. I'm not asking you guys to like someone you don't want to like. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm asking you to just be a man and admit what you are. And you don't even have to admit it if you don't want to. Because at the end of the day, I'm just putting the awareness out there. So regardless if the Dcafs want to admit what they really are about or not, this is all about awareness. I'm letting y'all know right now that it is a serious traffic jam on the freeway. So spread the word, each one teach one, so you guys can bypass it and get to where you need to get quick, fast, in a hurry. You know, I'm gonna close with saying this. I'm sure a lot of fans have experienced this in your life. You ever bought something for someone, a loved one, a girl, whoever you buy it for, right? And you buy them exactly what they wanted. It could be your kids, it could be anyone. You bought them exactly what they wanted. You know, last year you bought them something, but you knew it was a knockoff or it wasn't what they wanted exactly. It was a different brand or it was a smaller size or whatever, right? This year you say, you know what? I'm going to get this person exactly what they want. And then you give them the gift. They open it up. They just look at it. And they don't even say thank you. Right? This is exactly what these Dcafs did to Andre Ward. Do you guys know it was the Dcafs that really are responsible for making this Andre Ward versus Kovalev fight come to fruition? Do you guys know that? Let's go ahead and take a short trip down memory lane. You see, when Andre Ward was still the super middleweight champion, when he was still considered pound for pound number 2, the best fighter in the world, right behind Floyd Mayweather, Gennady Golovkin, who was starting to get some shine, he started getting a little bold and he started feeling himself, and he said, you know what, even though I'm at the middleweight division, let's move up to 168 and let's fight the biggest super middleweight in the division, which is Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., right? If we can't get him, let's fight Carl Froch, right? Now, keep in mind, this is at the time when Golovkin is saying, we're willing to fight anyone from 154 to 175. Then they change it to 154 to 168. This is when the number 2 pound for pound best fighter in the world, Andre Ward, he pops in and he says, hey, if you guys are going to come up to 168, why not fight the best fighter at 168? I mean, even if you want to take a couple tune-up fights and build the fight, we can even do that. Kind of like what Andre Ward just did with Sergey Kovalev, right? So Andre Ward is like, man, if you're going to fight Carl Froch, guess what? I already beat Carl Froch. So why don't you just skip the middleman and fight the best fighter in the division? Or you could even fight Carl Froch first, and then I'll be waiting for the winner. How about that, Gennady Golovkin? Let me tell you something, man. I am a straight psychologist when it comes to these Dcafs. I'm a psychologist, man. And I'm not just saying that just to say it. I can prove what I'm talking about, guys. The reason why I say this is because I know how a Dcaf is going to react, how they're going to respond. I know what they're going to say before it even comes out of their mouth. Perfect example. You see, guys, these are the things that I see. I see this shit as clear as day. Dcafs, they only hate you once you become a threat to a fighter on the hope list, right? When it comes to Andre Ward, no one was really hating Andre Ward. You have people today that hate Andre Ward like he did something to them personally, right? Which is something that we know is just a cover-up. Because there is nobody that you should have a personal disdain for in the sport of boxing unless they said something as offensive as Kovalev said about black people, right? With Kovalev, what he did putting a monkey on his son's shirt, right? That right there, that's enough to have fans personally dislike you because what Kovalev did, it was offensive to all black people. But when you have someone like Andre Ward, what did Andre Ward do for you to personally say, I don't like that guy? Even when you say, I don't like his style, it still doesn't add up. That's not enough. That's not an excuse to personally dislike someone. Let me give you an example to show you guys that, or prove to you guys that I practice what I preach. When Carl Frampton fought against Scott Quigg, that was a very boring fight. Very boring fight. I watched that fight on my DVR. It got so bad to where I started fast forwarding from after the second round. I fast forward to like the 5th round to see if it picked up, right? It still didn't pick up. Do you know I never watched that whole fight? To this day, I never watched the whole Carl Frampton versus Scott Quigg fight. But did you ever hear me say, this is why I don't like Scott Quigg. This is why I don't like Carl Frampton. I never said that. That fight could have been the most boring fight ever, and I still would not say I personally don't like Carl Frampton. So how can you say I personally don't like Andre Ward? The only way you can say that is because it is a cover-up. It's a cover-up because once again, when it comes to being a racist, you have to have some excuse why you don't like him because that helps alleviate guilt, right? Oh, that's right. Now I know why I don't like him. I don't like him because you remember when he took those 2 years off? Yeah, I knew it was a reason why I didn't like that guy. Yeah, that's why I don't like him because that happened. Oh, Floyd Mayweather, there's some reason why I don't like him. Oh, because of the domestic violence case. I knew it was a reason why I didn't like that guy, right? Terrence Crawford, oh, there's a reason. I just got to think about it. Why didn't I? Oh, that's why I didn't like Terrence Crawford because, the performance he had with Victor Postal, that's why I don't like him. This is how these fans think. This is how they think, guys. They know what time it is deep down, but they have to have a reason, right? They have to have an excuse for why they hate. But once again, when you look at the other side, when you look at people like me, none of these fighters I hate. None of these fighters. I don't dislike Canelo Alvarez. I don't dislike Gennady Golovkin. I don't dislike any of these fighters. Only thing I tell you is the same thing non-black people like Teddy Atlas and like Joe Rogan and like Ruslan Provodnikov, Sergey Kovalev, they say the same things that you guys hear me say, which is Golovkin is good, Golovkin is the best middleweight, but we want to see him step up in competition, right? That's all you hear me say. You don't hear me say, why I don't like Golovkin? Because of this, because he did this. You don't hear me say, I don't like Golovkin because he avoided Andre Ward. You don't hear me say that. Because for me, that's no reason to dislike him. That's a reason to criticize him, but that's not an excuse to personally dislike him. You got to really do something personal to me for me to not like you personally, right? See, and going back to Carl Frampton, just to give you guys a little bit of contrast, when I watched that fight against Scott Quigg, I told you guys I didn't watch the whole fight, right? But then when I watched Carl Frampton against Leo Santa Cruz, I watched that whole damn fight. Not only did I watch it once, but I believe I watched that fight twice. So this just goes to show you that I'm not gonna try to look for some silly ass excuse why I personally don't like someone, okay? You guys have to understand something. When you're in a court of law, and let's say you're the judge or you're the jury, and you've seen all the evidence, right? You've seen the DNA evidence that proves that the defendant is not guilty. You can't say after evidence proves this guy to be not guilty, you know what? I really don't like the way he dresses. He doesn't go to church. He said he's not really a church type of person. He's not a Christian, etc., etc., etc. So guys, I think we should vote guilty. It doesn't work that way. And this is exactly what Dcafs do in the sport of boxing, is they try to deflect and create these distractions that have absolutely nothing to do with the sport of boxing. It has nothing to do with finding out who is the best, right? It has nothing to do with who's going to win the Super Bowl in the sport of boxing. They try to create these distractions to make you look at things that is not relevant at all. I used this analogy a long time ago. It is a lot like The Walking Dead. This is how normal fans, at least the weaker ones and the slower ones, they get bit by the other decafs and they become infected. Next thing you know, they're walking around brainless and dumb, like a dumb casual ass fan, looking for other normal fans to infect. You know, that is exactly what happened to HBO's Jim Lampley. Believe it or not, there was a time when Jim Lampley was not biased and not racially biased at all when he used to cover fights. I mean, it was a long time ago, but there was a time. I mean, I go back probably maybe 10, 15 years. I remember there used to be a time when Jim Lampley, he used to actually call fights like an actual blow-by-blow announcer. I mean, he would call the fight straight down the line, no bias, no double standards, no contradictions. He would just call the fights, just like all the non-biased commentators do today, like Ronaldo from Showtime, the blow-by-blow announcer, like Paulie Malignaggi, Teddy Atlas, BJ Flores, Box Nation, the UK announcers, for the most part, right? For the most part. All of the PBC commentators, oh man, it's great when they have Virgil Hunter and Paulie Malignaggi going back and forth calling fights. Now that is great boxing commentary right there. And then you have the blow-by-blow announcer, which it could be different guys on PBC, and all of them are fair. This is how Jim Lampley used to be once upon a time. But I think what happened is he messed around and he got bit by Larry Merchant. And Jim Lampley, he ended up surprising the boxing world, and he became a bigger decaf than his Mr. Miyagi, Larry Merchant, right? I mean, how do you go from calling boxing matches, giving everyone the credit that they deserve in the ring, no matter what their race or nationality is? You go from that to all of a sudden, you're doing specials saying, I don't want Floyd Mayweather in the sport, and I can't wait until he retires, and no one wants to watch fighters like Mayweather, Roy Jones, Pernell Whitaker, but they want to watch Oscar De La Hoya. This is what Jim Lampley said out of his own mouth. I BS you not, guys. He said fans don't want to watch, now I'm going to throw this word in, black fighters, but he said fans don't want to watch fighters like Roy Jones, Pernell Whitaker, and Floyd Mayweather. He said this right after Floyd Mayweather beat Oscar De La Hoya, right? Tried to give Oscar De La Hoya as much credit as he could for losing a fight to the man he despised, Floyd Mayweather. This is when Jim Lampley became full-blown infected after he got bit by Larry Merchant. Okay? So once again, there was a time when Jim Lampley was normal. There was a time when he was a respectable blow-by-blow announcer. Now Jim Lampley is Fox News, right? Now everything is about his personal agenda. And if you guys don't believe me, you know, I have a video on my old channel, and I'll try to look it up and maybe throw the link in here if I could find it. Can't promise you anything. But I have a video that I did on my old channel where I have clips of Jim Lampley calling the first Bradley-Pacquiao fight, or Pacquiao-Bradley fight. And there was a round where, it was a real close round where Bradley and Pacquiao, they were going toe to toe, just taking turns going back and forth. And there was this one sequence, or one of many, but there was this one sequence that really stood out where you could tell that Jim Lampley forgot he was in the blow-by-blow announcer seat, and he was just calling the fight like he was a biased boxing fan, right? So there's this sequence going on, and Manny Pacquiao, he gets off a couple shots, and Jim Lampley is screaming, "Oh, look at the combination by Pacquiao," etc., 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 right? Then all of a sudden, it's Tim Bradley's turn, right? And Tim Bradley, he goes on the attack. Manny Pacquiao is completely on the defense. This went on for a good, I would say maybe 15 to 20 seconds straight, maybe even longer than that. Tim Bradley is catching Manny Pacquiao, not with just shots, but a lot of them clean shots, right? And all of a sudden, the blow-by-blow announcer, he goes on straight mute mode, and he says nothing at all. The whole entire time that Tim Bradley is catching Pacquiao with punch after punch, and Pacquiao's just sitting there just blocking, Jim Lampley doesn't say one single word. And you know how it is on HBO when it comes to Jim Lampley. If he doesn't say anything, most of the time, the other commentators, they don't really speak out because they don't know if Jim Lampley is going to get upset if they say something that he disagrees with. And we've seen that happen before. So once again, I'm not just talking. All of this stuff I'm telling you, I can prove to you guys. There were times in that Pacquiao-Bradley fight where Max Kellerman, he said, well, it looks like Tim Bradley won that round. I think it was like the first or the second round, right? And Jim Lampley, well, why would you say that? What makes you say that, Max? And Max, he had to explain himself. There was another time when Emmanuel Stewart, rest in peace, when he was saying a couple things about Tim Bradley, and Jim Lampley will go into Fox News mode and he'll start trying to counter what Emmanuel Stewart says. This is the reason why a lot of times I truly believe a lot of these color analysts that sit next to Jim Lampley, they're uncomfortable. You know, Roy Jones is definitely one of the rare, one of the few that has come out of his shell, because Roy Jones used to be like that the first couple years on HBO. He used to co-sign everything Jim Lampley said, and sometimes he would even outdo Jim Lampley. Not anymore, though. Nowadays, if it wasn't for Roy Jones, we would really be getting some extreme biased commentary from Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman. Roy Jones, a person who has been in the ring, a person who has already reached pound for pound king status. You know, he sets them straight a lot of times with logical points from a boxer's perspective, right? So Roy Jones, he has become very objective on the panel, which is very good for real boxing fans. When it comes to Max Kellerman, I can't figure Max Kellerman out, because 1 minute he sounds like he's one of the grand wizards of the Dcafs, and then all of a sudden he'll just throw in a couple of talking points that make a little sense, right? Like, let me just give the real fans just a little bit of the truth. Okay, now let me hurry up and run back to Jim Lampley, because I don't want him to, you know, think I done sold out and became a code word Ward lover or a PBC lover. You feel me? This is the pressure, I guess, that Max Kellerman is under right now. Once again, sitting next to the Grand Wizard, or one of the other Grand Wizards, Jim Lampley. So that's pretty much what it is. But once again, like I told you guys, Roy Jones Jr., he has become very objective, and I really love the fact that he's on that panel, or he's sitting at that table calling these fights along with Jim Lampley and Max Kellerman. But getting all the way back to the point, so yeah, like I said though, Tim Bradley, he was throwing these combinations and the whole table went quiet. Not a peep. I mean, you could hear people sticking their hands in their damn popcorn. You could hear people slurping the last of their drinks when it comes to how quiet it was when they were calling that 20 seconds of action. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up. I wanna go back to, once again, what Jim Lampley said in that piece when Floyd Mayweather beat Oscar De La Hoya. Jim Lampley, for him to say, fans don't wanna watch Floyd Mayweather, Roy Jones Jr., Pernell Whitaker. And this is what he actually said before he said they don't want to watch them. You guys ain't gonna believe this. You have to listen to it and see it to believe it. But I'm gonna tell you right now what he said. Before he said that, he said even though fighters like Floyd Mayweather, Roy Jones, and Pernell Whitaker were so good, they were able to reach the highest point in boxing and become pound for pound the best fighter in the world. Even though, despite them doing that, fans don't want to watch them. Fans want to see fighters like Oscar De La Hoya. Keep in mind, he's saying this right after Oscar De La Hoya lost to one of these guys, right? To add insult to injury. Fans want to see the fighter that loses the Super Bowl, the fighter that loses in the playoffs, the fighter who doesn't get the gold medal, doesn't get the silver medal, but the fighter that gets the bronze medal. This is the fighter that the fans want to see. That is what you call not only ignorance and racism, but indoctrination at its finest. Because notice, these type of fans, these type of Dcafs, they never say, well, you know, me personally, my favorite is this guy or that. No, they don't say that. They try to hypnotize you and tell you. He said fans don't want to see it. So what he's doing, he's looking at the camera and he says, look at my damn eyes. I don't care who reached the pound for pound top 10. I don't care if Floyd Mayweather, Pernell Whitaker, Roy Jones, I don't care if they're the best. Look in my eyes. I'm telling you, you don't want to see that. You hear me? You don't want to see these type of fighters, these people becoming the best fighter in the world. No one cares about the best. We want the Gaddy list. That's what we want to watch. We want to watch the guy who doesn't win the race, but the guy who finishes in 5th place. We want the Gaddy list. This is what Jim Lampley was trying to program in people's head. He was trying to infect people from a distance, okay? Jim Lampley said, since I can't bite all of y'all at one time, I'm just gonna throw out all this infected red meat and feed all of you guys. That is Jim Lampley's way of thinking. Can you believe that? To tell people this is not what fans want to see, to speak for all of boxing fans and make it sound like it's a matter of fact? Do you know how offensive that is? Do you know how 1950 that sounds? Maybe even before 1950. Do you know how disrespectful? And keep in mind, guys, I BS you not. Jim Lampley said this with Floyd Mayweather sitting right next to him. He had Oscar De La Hoya on a conference call with the screen up, the monitor up, and he had Floyd Mayweather in the studio sitting right next to him. It almost reminded me of when Mike Tyson was on that talk show with his ex-wife, Robin Givens, and she was just berating this man and disrespecting him as if he wasn't even sitting there. This is exactly what Jim Lampley did to Floyd Mayweather. It was so offensive. You do this to Floyd Mayweather after he gets his biggest win. You sit there and you tell the public, you tell the boxing world right in front of Floyd Mayweather, so what, you won? Nobody wants to watch you. No one cares about you, etc., etc., etc. Can you guys imagine if I told you, and I wasn't even saying it to be sarcastic, I was serious. Can you guys imagine if I told you right now, you know, Kovalev and Golovkin, Lomachenko, Pacquiao, these are good fighters. I mean, they're really good. But realistically, nobody wants to watch them. Nobody wants to watch these fighters. Fans really want to see fighters like Andre Ward, Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford, etc., etc., etc. Can you guys imagine if I said something like that? I mean, just think about it. I can't even say Golovkin should step up in competition. And they'll say, oh, you're hating, oh, you're just racist, and etc. I can't even say that. Now, once again, if I had the right complexion, I could say it because Teddy Atlas, he said it. Ruslan Provodnikov, he said it. Matt Korobov, he said it. Sergey Kovalev said it, but I can't say it because I don't have the complexion for the protection, right? But once again, they could say the exact same thing that I just said. So could you imagine, once again, someone saying nobody wants to watch Golovkin, nobody wants to watch Kovalev, Lomachenko? You already know what you would call me right away, right? Like I said, if I get called a racist just for saying, you know, Golovkin is 34 years old and the best opponent on his resume is a welterweight by the name of Kell Brook. If I were to say that, you would say, oh, you're being racist. So what do you say to a man who says no one wants to watch Roy Jones, Floyd Mayweather, and Pernell Whitaker? Think about that for a second and be honest with yourself. It don't matter what you type in the comment section because we all know that could just be some racial agenda type of stuff. I want to know how you really feel in your heart, and we already know that. You know deep down in your heart that everything that I'm saying right now is the truth, and it makes all the sense in the world. And at the end of the day, we know what time it is. I'm going to go ahead and end this video. Looking forward to watching this Andre Ward versus Sergey Kovalev fight. And I tell you right now, at the end of the day, it would be nice if racism didn't exist. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is who the best is. Win, baby, win. That's all that matters. You could sit over there and you could hate, you could roll around on the ground pouting like a little baby about how you hate these fighters on a coincidental list. But if you can't beat them, you're going to be rolling around pouting for a long ass time. That's all I got, y'all. I'm on to the next one.
When Jim Corbett, the man who took the heavyweight title from John L. Sullivan, had displayed some of the same defensive skills as Jack Johnson did, sports writers praised him as the cleverest man in boxing, Gentleman Jim. But when Johnson fought that way, he was said to be lazy, shiftless, showing the yellow streak which all African Americans were supposed to share.
With black boxers, every trait that was a positive trait, they tried to turn it into a negative trait. If a black boxer was tough and could withstand punishment, well, he could withstand punishment because his skull was thicker, because he was insensitive to pain. That it really was a sign of some larger inferiority. If he was a smart boxer, a wily boxer, then he was slightly deceptive. There was something untrustworthy about his activity in the ring.
This is Bobby, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.